All right, folks. Well, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune because it's time for another week of the Rec Poker Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Reed, Bluffsterini in the home game and at Rec Poker Jim on socials. And I have the best freaking job in the world talking poker with my friends here on the Strategy Forums edition of the podcast every Monday night while we steal each other's chips in the free nightly home game. Now, I'm happy to mention first that we're brought to you by Running Aces. They are the official sponsor of the Rec Poker Podcast and have been since way back in 2017. They're located less than an hour north of the Twin Cities in the beautiful state of Minnesota, and you can find out more about them at runaces.com. And I hope you come visit because we're doing Rec Poker Weekend at Running Aces right around the corner. First, I should say Happy New Year, everybody. This episode's coming out on Tuesday, December 31st, which means that you're just a month away from Rec Poker Weekend at Running Aces. That's going to be from Thursday, January 30th to Sunday, February 2nd, with a whole bunch of fun tournaments happening on Friday and Saturday of that weekend, and some great discounted hotel room rates, we hope, for Rec Poker members at the hotel that they've built there. It's a great establishment, longtime supporter of the show, and they run a great room there. And there's going to be a ton of Wrecking Crew members, Rec Poker members there. It's going to be a really fun weekend. I hope some folks can come and check it out. Speaking of checking out, I hope you check out our free membership at Rec Poker. There's a ton of fantastic resources there for recreational poker players of all skill levels. All it takes is an email address and a smile, although we do insist on both. And you can always get your first month of premium membership for only $5 by using the code RecPoker at checkout. Yeah, real original, guys, I know. And if $5 even feels like too much, we love to support food banks around here. So if you make a donation to a local food bank for any amount and just send us the receipt, even just $1, we'd be happy to set you up with your first month of Rec Poker Premium as a way of saying thanks for helping out your fellow man or woman or child. There's a lot of hungry people in the world right now. So consider that as a great way to make the world a better place. Now, you get used to hearing my voice because they let me host the show on Mondays, but I am only a small cog in the Rec Poker machine, and it takes a group, a gang, a crew to make all the magic happen around here. We call our group of wizards the Wrecking Crew, and if you want to learn more about me or the rest of the Wrecking Crew, you can go to rec.poker/crew, or you can just listen up, tune in, because you're going to meet a couple of them here tonight, just like we always do, alphabetically by first name, starting with Kim Kilroy.
Hi there, I'm Kim Kilroy. I'm PetVet33 here at Rec Poker and on the social platforms. I'm Fergie56 in the home game, and I run a hand history review group. We meet once a month and discuss somebody's hand.
I'm Rob Washam. You can find me as Rabman50 just about everywhere. And on the first and third Wednesdays of every month, me and a bunch of premium members get together and discuss the latest book on poker in Rob's book study.
And one of the great perks of being a Rec Poker Premium member is that you get to join the forums edition of the show. I love it when our premium members do, and we've got a great one here tonight. The one and only Darius Kriegel. He goes by DJ, and he's an awesome dude. DJ, why don't you say hello to Rec Poker Nation? Chime right in. You're muted at the moment. There he is.
Yeah, hi, I'm DJ. I'm HawkPlays85 on the forums, on the Discord, and on the home game. And then I'm DJ-Hawk on our new savior of social media, Blue Sky.
There you go. Thanks, DJ, for chiming in, and thanks for all your support over the years. It's been great hanging out with you and studying poker with you. So we've talked about the forums over on the website. If you go to rec.poker, one of the great free resources is our forums area. We've also started really switching a lot of our shorter conversations over to Discord. If you go to rec.poker/community/Discord, you can find a link for how to join. I'm also going to put a link in the show notes to this exact post. So this is one by our own Chris Jones playing on ACR. And it's a pretty deep stacked spot where Chris is on the button. And I'll just run through the action here, and Rob and Kim, we can chime in at our various decision points. So this is at an eight-handed table. Chris is on the button. He's sitting on 128.5 big blinds. It folds around to a player in the cutoff who has 46 and a half bigs. They open to 2.2. And Chris is looking at King of Spades, the 10 of Spades. So regular listeners will know that King 10 offsuit is my least favorite hand in all of poker. But King 10 suited is a different beast entirely. I actually love this hand. It can make straights, it can make flushes. When it makes flushes, it's very strong. It can make solid one pair hands. Um, so this is a hand that we're definitely playing. I think there's an argument for calling here. There's an argument for three betting here. Really anything but folding. Uh, when we are playing against this cutoff player, even though we have 128 bigs, the effective stack is only 46 and a half, and they've put in 2.2 big blinds. So I'll open this up to Rob or Kim. Rob, you unmuted first. What are you thinking about here when you're trying to decide about whether to call or three bet with a hand like this?
Well, I'm a recreational player. I'm more passive than I should be.
Yeah.
I think the solver would probably tell you to flip a coin as to whether you should call or three bet.
Yep.
And since I'm a recreational player and I'm passive, I would probably just call here. So
Well,
I'm not trying to let anybody think that I'm really a professional player and know exactly what to do in this spot. I'm telling you what we do as recreational players, and whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. I think that we should try to be more aggressive than we are. So I think there's an argument to be made that we could three bet here. And so, but like I said, I think even if I'm in this spot, I probably just call.
and it's a suited hand, it's a connected hand. You can make
Mhm.
straights and flushes with it. That typically inclines us to try and see a flop and we can even keep the SPR a little low until or sorry, keep the SPR high until we know that this is the kind of hand that we want to go with. And as Rob pointed out, I think a lot of solvers are going to have this as a mix between calling and raising. And usually, when the solvers have a mix, it means that the EV of the decision is very similar, if not identical. So I don't think it's a big mistake to call. I don't think it's a big mistake to raise. Um, when we're looking at the factors to consider here, I always think that like being in position is a good argument for calling and it's a good argument for raising. So it's not really a great tiebreaker there. When it comes to stack size, that is one interesting point. The deeper we are, the more inclined I am to three bet a hand like this. When we're playing 45 effective, it's actually it's approaching that awkward stack size where if you three bet this to a conventional size, like say six or seven big blinds or something like that, it's a significant portion of the other player's stack, which is good. It's nice to be applying pressure on their stack, but um, I think you can win bigger pots when you're deeper. So you can make pots bigger when you're deeper, and that would tilt me a little towards calling in this case as well, just to kind of see a flop, see if we make a flush draw, see if we make a straight draw. Um, and you also kind of keep your oh, Kim, yeah, jump in, save me.
No, no, I was just gonna say I agree. At the stack size, I think it's more likely a call. I think deeper than we can choose to three bet it some of the time.
Hmm.
And then maybe base that on our opponent's tendencies and stuff like that. But I like the call at this stack bet. So
DJ, what's on your mind? I saw you
I'm
unmuting
gonna
there.
be the contrarian then here
Do
because
it.
I'm afraid of what happens in this hand where you get the blinds or both blinds calling here. Like you talk
Hmm.
about it being an equal EV play, but the solvers are only two-player solvers. We don't have the multi-way solvers, so they're it's equal EV. If it's just two players, you add the third player, and instead of it being 40-60, you're 30%, 1 in 3 chance of winning. So I want to, one, the hand is good enough. I think you can three bet it. Two, I don't want to let the blinds come in. And if the blinds want to play, I want them to put the money in, because if they put the money in, I doubt that cutoff is going to, because now they know two players have it. Then
I like it.
my only question is whether I feel like I'm calling a four bet here.
Hmm. Yep. No, DJ, you have been hitting the books. I love seeing that injection of aggression, right? And that, like Rob kind of mentioned earlier on in his point, recreational players, we are typically more passive, so we should be looking for spots to inject some aggression into our hands. And I think a good place to start would be those hands that the solver says are a mix. And if we're more comfortable calling, that's a good argument for maybe we should try and flex our three bet muscles here again. DJ?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, uh, I guess I'm three betting out of fear here, so I don't know if that's really the smart thing either. So
Yeah, I think it.
One thing you want to think about too, when you're making this decision, what do you know about the small blind and the big blind?
Hmm.
Because when you have an open from the cutoff, which is a late position open, and then you call from the button, you're opening yourself up for a squeeze from the blinds. More typically from the small blind than from the big blind, but you could also face a squeeze from the big blind. So, um, what are their tendencies? So if their tendencies are to squeeze, you might want to call here because they're squeezing wider than normal because there's already been a raise, an open and a call. So when I see an open and a call and I'm in the small blind, my raising range expands because now I can put a lot of pressure on that original opener. And knowing that the button only called, I can put a lot of pressure on both of them. So I don't need to have, just the aces and the kings to squeeze here. I can squeeze with a big majority of my hands and put a lot of pressure on those players. So if you have a small blind that's willing to do that, you may want to call. You may want to invite that squeeze with a hand as strong as this. So just a thought.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective because then, Rob, I think if they three bet from the blinds and squeeze, and whether the original caller calls or not, we're actually going to be getting a pretty good price to play a hand that we want to see a flop with in position. And I think if the small blind player three bets and the original raiser four bets, then we can just release the hand and we've only invested 2.2 big blinds, which is a pretty, I mean, I like the way you think about that. Um, and yeah, and then I think we would also, we're going to have tons of hands that we are three betting with here. I prefer to three bet the King 10 offsuit, the King Jack offsuit, for that same reason because they're very easy to fold to a four bet. I wouldn't want to get four bet with a hand like King 10 suited because I'd have to fold, I think, and we'd be folding, we'd be kind of giving up a lot of equity that we wouldn't have had to. So we can kind of like get blown off our equity in a way that I don't mind getting blown off King 10 offsuit or King Jack offsuit. DJ?
I was just talking about getting four bet off. Like, this might be just me playing more in the micro stakes compared to everyone else's. People don't four bet unless they're playing, jacks through
Yeah.
aces. And I would rather them say, "Hey, I've got the hand now," and I can just be like, "Okay, yeah, I just didn't have that one,"
Yep.
or know what I'm getting into on the flop right away, right? Like, I know they have. I see an ace, a queen, or a jack. I know I'm pretty much dead.
Mhm. I like it. I like it. I like the way you're approaching that. So Chris Jones, he does call. The small blind folds and the big blind calls. The big blind is playing 83 big blinds effective. So, and we'll just get into the action here. So we're holding the king of spades, the 10 of spades. The flop is the eight of spades, six of spades, five of spades, which I would categorize as an above average flop for our hand. Pretty good. So we flopped the king high flush. So we don't have the nuts, but we're pretty close to the nuts here. The ace high flushes are beating us. There is a 4-7 or what would it be? A 4-7 or a 7-9 of spades would be the straight flush combos here. So pretty unlikely. Um, it gets checked around to Chris. So both
There's a few
players,
ace high combos though, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, ace X and the straight flush ones. Both
So
players check.
let's talk about that. What combos of
Yeah,
ace X are there going to be um, from the opener?
because we've got the king and the 10, so it can't be ace king, it can't be ace 10,
But it
but
could
it
be
could,
any other ace X of
yes,
spades, right?
they're
Because
in the
he's
cutoff.
in the cutoff, so he could very easily be raising with just about any suited ace.
And unsuited ace,
Ace
probably
10
down
maybe.
to ace nine, ace eight,
Yep,
maybe,
with
depending
the
on how
with the
aggro.
with the naked ace of spades, you mean, Kim, as opposed
Yes.
to a
Yeah.
suited ace? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. I think so. Oh yeah, there's tons of ways they could have just the ace of spades here for sure.
Mhm.
And then I think, as Rob's pointing out, the cutoff is a very late position. Players are going to be opening a ton of suited aces there. So even though we can discount ace king, ace 10, ace 8, ace 6, ace 5, there's still a lot of hands that they can be opening that make a better flush than us. So I don't want us to feel like we have the nuts here, but I think this is definitely a good flop for us, and we should be trying to extract value. This is also a good board to try and bluff. With like, I think people tend to overfold on monochrome boards like this, monotone boards rather. So you typically are going to see small bets by the original raiser, and if you don't, you're going to see small bets by the player with absolute position, and that's what happens here. The big blind player checks, the cutoff player checks, who is the opening raiser, and Chris bets two big blinds into a pot of eight, so about a quarter pot. Honestly, I think they could even go a little smaller in a spot like this with their entire range when it gets checked. I don't mind the bet at all. I think a quarter is great. And we're going to get called by the kind of hands that we want to get called by. And maybe players can still bluff. No notes so far. The big blind player makes a relatively small raise. It's three times Chris's bet, so it goes to six big blinds. The original raiser folds, and now we get to the first real decision point, I think, of the hand for Chris. So he only has to call four more, and at this point there is 18 in the pot. So he's getting really good pot odds here. The one thing that's different about this spot is that the original
It's actually,
razor was a shorter set.
isn't there 16 in the pot now?
There's Chris's two plus the raised
There's six.
six. That's
So
eight.
it's six.
Plus it was 10. Oh yeah, you're right. It was eight to start. 16 to
Yeah.
start.
So
Thank
it's
you.
six.
Thank
It's
you.
about 16. I
Yeah,
think,
good one.
I personally, um, I think this is a good spot to re-raise the check raise.
Hmm. So we bet they check raise. So that's a two bet. So we're talking about three betting now as the better. And Rob, talk to us about why this is a good spot for a three bet.
Um, I'm doing it for two reasons, I guess. One, trying to get value from the naked ace of spades
Yep.
because there's a lot of big blind players that are going to be check raising with nut flush draws. Um, so the check raises are going to come from on a flop like this. You're not going to see a lot of check raises with um, a, top pair. Top pair is not going to be check raising a lot here. What you're going to be getting check raises from is people with made flushes, um, ace of spades for the nut flush draw, and possibly a seven of spades. Because now he has the open-ended straight flush draw. So a seven of if somebody had the seven of spades, that would be a potential. So a check raise here is either going to be a made flush or it's going to be a very, very strong flush draw.
Yeah.
I don't think, well, I don't know that anybody's would people be check raising with a set of eights?
I think bigger. I think not to this sizing if they did. Um, I just feel like they'd they'd get caught in this kind of tension that we feel often where we're like we're ahead and we want to just either end the hand or have them make a mistake by calling like too big. So we're gonna like spaz out a little and make it too big. But yeah, assuming that like you say, Rob, assuming that they're doing this with a balanced range of made flushes and like ace of spade hands and seven of spade hands. And then, let's say a couple combos of some sets or not much else though. They're probably check
Yeah, I
calling with
don't.
some of it.
Yeah, I just don't know. Would you raise? Would you check raise here with a set of eights?
Yeah, probably a certain amount of the time. I like with any of the sets here, I think.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
not always, but I think it's in the arsenal.
Okay.
Would you do it
But
with a straight, with a made straight here?
Probably for the same reason. Yeah, I like that, DJ.
Yeah, like that's what I was trying. The first time I saw this is that's what I was trying to figure out is what's the worst that this person is. What's the what's the best hand they can have that we're beating here?
Right. Yeah. And I think we're beating some of their lower flushes. Um, and I think you're right, DJ, I like that point that like a 7-9 would take a check raise line here sometimes. Again, like Rob, not all the time, but I can see those in there. What are the hands that they're
so
check calling, do you think, Rob?
um, I'm not sure about this player.
Mm,
But I would think that we're talking an ignition, or no, we're talking an ACR tournament here.
ACR, it's $55 tournament.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm thinking that this is gonna be a pretty strong group of people
Hmm.
because ACR tends to be much stronger than like Ignition or Bet Online or one of those other poker sites. So I know they're usually a lot tougher here, and Chris plays at a good size, so he's going to have a lot of strong players in there. So I'm going to assume that yeah, he's gonna be able to check raise with a straight made flush, flush draw. Now here's my point. If we go ahead and re-raise and get re-raised again,
Hmm.
I mean, I think it's a good opportunity to say, okay, I believe you. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be re-raising you with a flush draw or a straight.
And this is the four bet that you're talking about now. So you're
Right,
saying if
right.
they check, we bet, they raise the two bet, we raise the three bet. If they
To make it
shove now,
yeah,
or if they, not all
yes,
in four bet there,
right.
that's all value, is what you're telling me.
Right, right. And if they
Yeah.
call, then we know that we have hope.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Now, the one thing that was interesting to me, I thought about this when I first saw the hand was if the if the check raising player was the original raiser off the 45 big blind stack, then I think we call here and it's fine. And we don't need to raise in order to get the whole stack in by the end of the river. And by calling, one of the things that's nice is we might elicit some future bluffs from these players. Like if we call this check raise and the board does not bring another spade, it's likely that the ace of spade holding hands are going to continue. So I think there's something to be said for that. We get to kind of hand them a little more rope and they can continue bluffing. And then we are in a position where we can continue calling and they're kind of value owning themselves because this player playing from the blinds is so much deeper. They're playing off an 80 something big blind stack. I think that's another argument for the three bet here, just because we get to leverage that whole stack. We're almost certainly ahead here, even against that part of the range. And let's face it, like we don't really want to see a fourth spade either. Like there's some bad run out hands for us as well. So facing that deeper stack, that would be more of an argument, I think, for the three bet here. I'm
Yeah,
not sure it's a
and
hanging offense in either case, but that's the quibble
right.
that we've got. Yeah.
But we have to also remember that this guy had the perfect opportunity to squeeze pre-flop, and he didn't. So that's
Mm.
going to inform his range a little bit too. You know, we know he doesn't have um well, you you have to I guess you have to try to put this person on a range, which none of the conversation that I saw on the forums or the Discord channel, we really didn't talk about what kind of range he had to start with. We just looked at what kind of hands are we afraid of. So let's, take a look at that and understand that he could have a lot of marginal hands here that connected pretty well with this flop.
And we do
He's not gonna be there with pocket aces, for instance.
right. Good point.
Well, pocket aces with the ace of spades, maybe, but not a
They squeeze.
pair of
They
red
squeeze
aces.
pre-flop. Squeeze pre-flop for sure. I think we can
Right,
discount some of those
right,
hands.
right.
Yeah. And probably even ace queen of spades, I think, as well, squeezes here.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
they
think we
could.
can, I don't think we have to worry about that. That's one combo that we just don't have to worry about.
Right.
Um,
There's a lot of hands that we talked about before that he could have that he probably doesn't have because he would have squeezed with. So we have
hmm.
to keep that in mind too, where we're at in that in his range construction.
And you referenced the conversation in the Discord. There are some really good comments here from Taylor Moss. Chris Jones provides some more information. Darth Maul, who is a new member getting in there. And DFS Brett, that's Scott Beckham, Wrecking Crew member, providing a lot of detailed information about his read of the situation here. So a lot of good comments in there. And I'll include the link in the show notes so folks can check it out. Kim, what's your take on whether to call or call the two bet or three bet here? Is it a big mistake either way? Do you have a personal preference? What are the factors that would make you choose to go one way or the other?
I would definitely be three betting
It's
here.
just a value three bet. The depth of
Yep,
stacks make it.
for value. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they want to shove. Well, maybe what are they shoving with? That is not beating us. Maybe just the naked ace of spades. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That,
All right.
yeah.
So we do as played our hero here, Chris Jones. He does call. And the turn comes the 10 of hearts, which is a total brick. So there are now 20 big blinds in the pot, and the check raising player leads out for half pot. And now we're at another decision point for Chris here. So now there's 30 in the middle, still plenty behind at this point. Um, let's see, he's got to have almost 70 big blinds back still. Um, I think this is a clear raise for a lot of the same reasons that we've been talking about so far. Rob or Kim, does anyone want to advocate for a smooth calling here? I know no one's folding.
No,
No, I like
no.
the raise. I don't think it's hot, big enough. I
Okay,
think it should
so
be at least making pot size raise or a call and then making a pot size raise. So that would be like calling the 10, so that's 40. That it's like I'd be raising it to at least 35 or 40
mhm.
because uh when we just make this kind of raise, they're getting just too good odds if they just have the naked ace of spades to call,
Yep.
right? So but and we can get more value from that hand, especially if it bricks off in the river. We can get more
And
value now.
yes. And I really like the way you're putting that, Kim. So he does raise. He chooses the size of 25 big blinds over the bet of 10. So yeah, that big blind player, they only have to call 15 big blinds more, and there's 55 in the middle. So they are getting a really good price with their ace of spade hands. And I mean, even with some of their other, I mean, some of the hands that they choose to bet there, like they are getting a pretty good, they are getting a pretty good price. And I think, like you said, we're not scaring them away from the ace of spades if we use a bigger sizing here. The other thing that's nice about it is that it also means when we get to the river, we have a smaller bet behind. If we make the raise bigger on the turn, then when we get to the river and we want to shove, our shove is like half pot as opposed to an overbet. And that means that he can get called by a lot worse hands, even hands that didn't improve.
Right,
Um,
like straights, we could get called by straights
yes.
and sets and maybe some two pair. But yeah, so I think that maybe, in my opinion, is too small a raise.
Now, do we fold out those hands with the bigger raise on the turn, though? Do we fold out some of those straights and two pairs if we raise? I mean, I don't know. That's tricky. That's tricky.
I don't, and they didn't bet like they had two pair or a straight yet. They
Mhm.
just bet a half pot. So I don't know. I just think that if we can call or we can raise, but if we're gonna raise, we should be raising a lot bigger than this.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, I think I like the call or the raise, I mean. Um, and yeah, you could go pot size, which would be about 40, right?
Hmm.
Because it'd be the 10 to call plus that means there's 40 in there. So you'd have to, you'd bet 40 as a pot size bet. The fact that he calls and
Hmm.
doesn't go over the top tells us a lot, right? So now the size of the bet that Chris made is going to get value from an ace of spades.
Yep.
He's probably not necessarily going to get value from an ace of spades if he goes full pot and goes to
Yeah.
a bet of 40. So I'm wondering if Chris's thoughts here were that he could get some value from those draws,
Hmm.
from those, single fade type draws, if that had a bearing on his decision there. Because you're going to fold out a lot of those with a pot size bet. When you go 40, you could fold out a lot of those. People could say, well, he's got it, and I only got one card to come. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what he was thinking there, but um, I don't mind the pot size bet, and I really don't mind the bet he made either.
Hmm. And it's interesting. So the blinds player does call, and so we go to the river, and the stacked up. So here, the way we've got it set up, the river now, there's 71 and a half big blinds in the pot. And the big blind player is the effective player. They've got just under 50 big blinds left. So it's two-thirds pot, however you want to call it. It's pretty close to that. It's a fairly standard pot size. Um, but it's still like there's a lot of fold equity there. I do think if we make it a little bigger, I don't know. Well, let's see. So as it happens, we get literally the worst river card ever. So I'm just gonna say the board and then pause the show for a second and think about what's the worst possible river card. So the board is eight of spades, six of spades, five of spades, 10 of hearts. Now you're in position with the king high flush. What's the one card you do not want to see? All right, let's put on a little elevator music here for a second.
It's a little
That's right. It's
Jeopardy
this.
song,
Yeah,
little
yeah, thank
Jeopardy
you.
song.
Might have been, was it Wheel of Fortune? I don't know. It's been a while. Um, seven of spades. Seven of spades, of course. So now there's five, six, seven, eight of spades plus the 10 of hearts, but who cares? So it's just a terrible run out. Just a terrible, terrible card. So if the player so they bet called the turn, they didn't shove. Feels like this player has the ace of spades quite a bit. Um, but even if they don't have the ace of spades, if they have the four of spades or if they have the nine of spades, they've made a straight flush. So our hand value has just tanked compared to how strong it was on the turn. Like if this was the ace of spades, that's a spade we don't mind seeing. Even if it's like the two of spades or the jack of spades, like those aren't killers for us necessarily because they only bring in the single ace high flush draw. But because it's the seven, I don't know how frequently we want to say that our opponent has the four of spades or the nine of spades, but just the fact that it brings those to the four is pretty brutal. And this player just shoves all in for their 50 big blinds into the pot of 70. I mean, this sucks. This is a terrible, terrible spot. DJ, you unmuted. What's on your mind?
So just looking at the hand, is there any possible way they play this with Queen Jack suited? That's the first thing that I popped into my head. Like they
Like the
just don't think
queen?
we have King tens, like because we flatted, right? They
Yep.
probably don't think we have King 10 suited. We're
Yep.
underrepresented here. So is there any way how this plays out that like we're more likely to have a straight on the flop with our flat, but
Hmm.
so and I just don't see the Queen Jack suited doing this. Like this is just like
Yeah.
ace something of spades or ace of spade something off or yeah, for some reason I just feel like there's the nine, and I think that's just the having heard Rob say enough, they always have it
Yeah, that's right. That's
that I just
right.
have that in my head. So
One of the things that I'm thinking about is in these coaching sessions I've been doing with Matt Affleck, he's like one of the things that recreational players don't do well enough is range construction such that they have bluffs on future streets. And if you think about the hands that we were hoping our opponent had on the turn, they were hands like a lot of them were ace of spade hands or seven of spade hands. Okay, well, they can't have the seven of spades anymore because that came on the river. But what it means is that when this card comes, where are the bluffs? What bluffs does our opponent have here? Um, we're counting a ton of value combos that they can have with the naked ace of spades, but those were most of their bluffs on the previous street. And like I don't see them turning like two red queens into a bluff here to try and get us because we also look like we've got a spade as well. Like if they don't have the ace of spades, our play looks a lot like we have a high spade as well. So I don't see I just I don't think this is a very bluffed spot given the way that the action has gone. And I don't know. The real interesting I mean I think this is just a fold. I think I fold here. I whine and complain about it a bit for sure. I definitely have a little funeral for my cards at the table. I'm like, oh man, like I look at them and look at the board, grimace, like, oh, so unfair every time, you know. But I'm probably finding the fold here. Um, Rob, you're unmuted. What's your take?
Yeah, I'm going back to the flop where we didn't um re-raise the check raise.
Yep.
And so what we allowed to happen is his range stayed the same.
Mm,
We didn't we didn't constrict his range um based on what we know already. So we know already that he check raised us. So that range exists, but we didn't constrict his range further by re-raising him and seeing if he called that. Seeing if he goes over the top of us, well, we know he's got the nut flush, so we can get away there. Um, so I think we've kept his range in there, and I think he had a. I think I don't know.
that's kind of what Chris is saying in his comments in the Discord post here. He says.
Yeah,
This player is not overly aggressive, pretty call happy, and I'm just not sure if the lone Queen of Spades does this. To DJ's point, I don't see it from the Queen of Spades. Whether it's the Queen Jack of Spades, Kim, you're shaking your head, you agree. Um,
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
if he had queen jack of spades, for instance, then I could see a call on the turn. If he had the ace jack of spades, first of all, he probably would have, you know, squeezed pre-flop.
right.
But if he's real passive and just wants to see a flop and see if he can outhand somebody,
Hmm.
I guess you could say, then maybe that's true. But then that call on the turn doesn't make any sense at all. He would have jammed the turn. So he did not have us beat on the turn,
I agree.
because if he had a hand that could beat our king high flush, then he would have raised. He would have gone all in after we raised him on the turn.
And when stacks are this deep, that is crucial. Like you cannot just play a small ball with strong hands when stacks are deep like this. It's a huge opportunity cost. All those extra chips that you could have won. And sure, you're going to lose occasionally when they have the absolute nuts, but they don't have that at a very high frequency. And there's a lot of value that you can target here. So I agree with you, Rob.
And I don't
Um,
think he can. I don't think he goes all in unless he has ace of spades here
right.
at the minimum.
DJ, what's on your mind?
I was just going back to, the range construction and Rob talking about the squeezing pre-flop, that this person
Mm,
didn't squeeze pre-flop. So I'm on, it's probably ace of spades something off, or
Mhm.
nine of spades ace off, something like
yep.
that, right?
Yep.
Like,
Yep. Yep.
Nine of
or
spades
maybe
makes perfect
ace four
sense.
off, like an ace four off, right? Like
Yep.
something like that. Because I just can't come up with, and again, I am used to people just not three betting as much as they could so they could have anything. And yeah, stealing from Rob, they always have it.
Yeah.
That's right.
And
That's
I'm
right.
sure if we knew his hand, there would be the ace of spades would be in it. I'm just sure of it. I mean, just the way the hand was played out, I don't think he has a straight flush. Um, because he called on the turn. If he had a, a seven, or if he had the four of spades or the nine of spades, and we raise him on the turn, first of all, I don't know that he even bets on the turn with just
Right.
the gut shot straight flush draw, or a flush to the nine, or a flush to the nine, basically, or a flush to the eight. I
Hmm.
don't think he bets there with that. And when we raise, if he did bet with something like that and we raise, does he call? I don't think he calls with something like that. So it has to be the ace of spades. I
Yeah,
can't
that
see what else he
also
could have.
makes sense for him to raise the flop when he has the naked ace of spades in his hand.
Yes.
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 And then lead call on the
He
turn,
could
bet
he
call
could
the
have
turn.
ace of spades, 10 of diamonds, ace of spades, 10 of clubs easily
Yep.
here.
Yep.
Yep.
And
Yep.
he hits top pair on the
And the
turn
redraw.
Yep.
Yep.
turn,
Yep.
and he has the ace of spades back.
Right.
So
Yep. And I
I
can I
love
can
it.
see I can see some nine of spades hands here as well, calling from the big blind and then using
Yeah.
it as a check raise candidate. So I think there are some combos of value
Well,
here.
I don't think once we get past the flop, I don't think that nine of spades is doing anything on the turn.
the only way he has 9 of spades, in my opinion, is he has 9 of spades and an offsuit 7, and he flopped a straight.
Right, right, right.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, that makes sense too. That flows. So I think we're all feeling the fold here. I still can't come up with a single bluff. Like I know that's not a strength of my game to do this range construction. I'm still working on that, but I don't see a bluff combo, Kim.
It's a puke fold, but it's a fold.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now you
So
swallow that vomit back down your throat
Yeah.
after you threw up in your mouth, and
yeah.
then you fold.
It's a great feeling. DJ?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that just the way that it played out, even if he was bluffing on, semi bluffing on the flop and the turn, he just like he there's nothing left that he was semi bluffing with that doesn't
Precisely.
exist.
Precisely. All
And
his
I
bluffs
don't
have
remember if it
improved.
was one of the Rec Poker podcasts or something else. They were talking about when you're deciding on the river to call, can you think of any of their bluffs, and can you think of any of their value hands that you beat?
Yeah.
And like, no, like you have to think, and it's not just one or two. Like, can you think enough of them? It's just like, no, like,
That sounds like us. Actually, I think that's we might have said something like that just last week in the what to do post where oh no, it was the Joe Malay post where he's facing the shove on the two pair board. Anyway,
Hmm.
yes,
Yep.
that's a great way of thinking about it, DJ. So let's I think we all fold. I think it's the right play. Congratulations to Eurozere, whatever that player's name is in the big blind. If they find a bluff there, kudos to them.
He's
Let's
from
just take a
Canada, obviously.
obviously, eh?
He's saying you're a hoser, eh?
Oh, he is. You're a hoser, eh? Good one. There you go, Rob.
He
Good,
must be
nicely
from
done.
Canada.
Must be from Canada. Um, let's just take a couple minutes and just talk about a couple. Let's just, the way I like to learn poker is I like to just change one variable and then think about how that changes the decision making. So let's say that they checked. Are we betting for value? Are we making a small bet for value now, trying to get called by a queen of spade hand or a jack of spade hand? Or are we just checking back and avoiding having to face a check raise?
Would always bet.
You would always bet. I love it.
Yeah,
Kim, go for it.
just what you want to get called by the baron queen of spades,
Yeah,
or there's a one spade hand.
yeah.
Maybe even a straight will call if it's small enough.
And then you just don't want to be check raised because you're kind of in the same
Oh, if you
position that
check
you're in
raise,
now.
you're yeah. I don't
Yeah.
think there's any way you can be check raised as a bluff here.
I don't think so either. And then what if the bet was smaller? What if their opponent leads into us, but they don't shove? Can we call a smaller bet? Like if they put out a little blocker bet or something like
Yeah, I think we
this,
call.
I think so
I
too.
think if we
I agree.
probably put this in the solver would want us to call part of the time anyway.
Right.
But that's assuming that our opponent has the right number of bluffs.
Which I don't see here. That's the problem. Like we might even we might even fold to some smaller bets here because again, like what are they doing it with?
Well, I
Um,
mean, a smaller bet, they could be doing it. They don't want you making a bigger bet
right. So a lower
when they've
flush
hit the
maybe.
flush. Yeah.
Yeah, lower flush, the queen or the jack. DJ, what's on your mind with that?
my thought with the check is that while we have a strong hand, now we have in the toy game we have the king here.
Yes.
So I would check back just
Yeah.
because in this situation, like I can't like I have the medium strength hand. If I bet into them, they get to play perfectly.
There's
Yep.
this heuristic also that when you're in position, you shouldn't bet small on the river. You should either check or bet larger. This is just a general rule. It doesn't apply all the time. Because you open up the action again and you only can win so much by the small bet, but you open yourself up for the check raise where you could conceivably get bluffed off it. I think in this spot, like Kim says, you can actually go for the value bet because you can comfortably fold to the raises because I don't think they have a lot. I still can't find any bluff raises here. If you're listening to the show, I would love to know what are the bluffs. Email me, jim@rec.poker. Hit me up on Blue Sky or socials, Rec Poker Jim. What are the bluffs? I want to know what the bluffs are here.
I have a
DJ, did you have
question. You're
something else?
talking about changing the variables a bit.
Yeah, yeah,
So if you have, is there a better combination of spades that you could have besides the straight flush
yeah.
that would make you feel comfortable calling the shove? Like
That's
if you had
interesting.
that ace, if you have the ace 10, are you still calling?
That was actually going to be my next question. My last question was going to be if we have the ace of spades, does that change? Does that change the calculus at all? Because now they really have to have either the four or the nine. But if they have either of those, you're still dead. I guess
But I think if we had the ace, let's say we had ace 10 of spades,
sure.
don't we play it a little differently?
Yeah,
We don't
yeah,
get here.
we
We don't
wouldn't
get
get
here
here
like
exactly
this.
like this. That's true. I know. But cheat with me a little, Rob. If we were just a little higher in our own distribution, I guess. Um,
We can't be without having the ace of spades
right,
unless we have the, you know, king nine of spades.
right.
Well, then we
So
then we've got the nuts, so we just go.
yeah, and you know what? It's
That's
also
totally
it's
different.
and it's different because we'd be removing a lot of the bluff combos that we want them to have on earlier streets, and now they have to have actually the nine
Yep.
or the four, which is a lot less likely. So okay, it does
On the
change the
flop,
hand.
we three bet and all kinds of other
Yeah,
stuff is going on.
yeah. All right. So good point. Good point. I always like to ask the question. You never know what we can shake loose with
Well,
that.
this is so, I love what DJ said about the toy game because the king
Yeah.
is actually, we have the king, which is the condensed range, right?
Hmm.
And our opponent has the polarized range
Right.
because of how the action went. So I like DJ's thoughts on that, if we get checked to, um, in the toy game, if you get checked to, you never bet the king.
I mean,
DJ?
honestly, I think he lost the queen in the toy game, and he only has the ace in this situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Kim?
No, I don't know. I don't think, does he check the ace though?
No,
Like, I don't know if he checks the ace. So
Oh, I see
I
what you're
think
saying.
I just don't think he checks the ace.
yeah, but
But
then he's not going to call a bet.
yes, well, he could call a bet with a lower flush
Right, the
or a
queen.
straight
Okay.
If we're
All right.
targeting the queen,
if we're
yeah, or the
making a
queen of the
small enough
jack.
bet. Just, I don't know. I've been working on trying to go for thin value on the river
Yeah, you might.
instead of
Yeah,
always checking back.
you have a
Yep.
great
So we
point
should
there.
bet half pot, the way that says that we don't know what we're doing, right, Kim?
No,
Even
I
less.
would say I would say less
Yeah.
than that.
Yeah, me
I would say
too.
less, like
Like
a
a
So
third
30
quarter.
or
pot,
40%.
Even
third
less,
pot.
honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. For me. Because you are trying to then get the crying call.
right.
So you need to really, reel them in for that a little bit. But I do think we have to, what we're risking is them finding that weird bluff combo and blowing us off the hand. I just don't know that that's happening here that
No,
frequently.
no. I'm on Kim's side here again on the river. If it's checked
Smart.
to us on the river here, then we do need to bet. And there's no way he's checking with the nuts. There's no way he's checking with the ace of spades
Or the nine of spades.
or the nine of spades, which
Yeah.
would be the nuts. The nine of spades would be the nuts. There's
Uh,
no
Yeah.
way he's checking either of those hands.
I've been
So
convinced. Yeah.
Mhm.
so
And
he's
and
not
then
going
he
to
would never
raise
raise
us.
even if he
Right,
checked the ace, he's never raising the ace because there's a straight flush out there.
right.
Yeah, we have some nine. We're on the button, right? We can
Yep.
definitely have all sorts of
And
nine
we
of
just
spades,
called.
X
We
hands.
did not
Yep.
raise on the button.
Yep. Totally.
I
All
love it.
right. Well, this has been a
Great
really interesting
conversation,
conversation.
guys.
Yeah.
Great
Any last
conversation.
any last thoughts for our hero, Chris Jones, who's going to be listening to this in rapt attention on January 1st, 2025, starting his new year as a phenomenal poker player and content creator over here at RecPoker?
I don't know. I think the solver would probably like the way he played it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
typically that's how it happens. The guy's a freaking poker machine. Well,
Yeah,
thank you to
he spends a lot of time on GTO Wizard, I think.
yes, he knows what's the expression? He knows his backside from the broadside of a barn. Am I making that one up? I think that sounds like that's a real one. DJ, any parting thoughts before we roll on out of here?
I'm just gonna, you were saying, I'm just catching up on the podcast. And a year ago, you were always talking about how you wish you would have joined the community years earlier to learn. And like, I feel like 6 months ago, when I was just trying to get back into it, I wouldn't have been thinking about these, some of this stuff without being part of the community. So, testimonial, it works. You
Cheers,
can't see,
man.
but I'm holding a thumbs up.
Well, it warms my heart to hear it.
Nice.
I know Wrecking Crew members, we love doing this. And one of the things we love most about it is hearing from folks like yourself, not just premium members, but podcast listeners who feel like we've contributed towards their improvement as a player. It's something that we all take so much pride and pleasure in. So thanks for sharing that, and thanks for your support as a premium member, and thanks for just being such a great dude. And I always appreciate our chats, and this has been a lot of fun. So, without further ado, I guess I want to thank again the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. Come visit us on January 31st. It's going to be a lot of fun up there that weekend. Big thank you to Chris Jones, Kim Kilroy, Rob Washam, DJ, my man Darius Kriegel himself here in the chat, and you, the listeners at home, everyone posting in the Discord. We couldn't do it without you. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time on the RecPoker Podcast. And Happy New Year! Oh my God, 2025, it's here. Goodbye.